authoritarianism. So I was remarking, and this is sort of grave humor, remarking the other day, if you're worried, if you're worried in the UK about being taken over by Nazis, don't worry, you're already being run by totalitarians anyway. You're already in a totalitarian state. There are cameras everywhere. Government won't keep you safe and won't let you keep yourself and your family safe. Tells you what you can fucking report on. So what freedom exactly do you have? The freedom to be a moron? The freedom to be a sheep? The freedom to go to the Orwell statue and see there are 5 cameras aimed around the square? Wonderful, wonderful, absolutely great. The freedom to be in a former power, basically, that's beginning to be supplanted by India, yet another one of its former colonial possessions. India will be more free than the UK before too long, because the way the UK is going is just go, fucking don't even bother with Brexit. Stay in the EU and deal with their totalitarianism. I fail to see the difference. This is another problem with certain nationalistic groups. They just want to lower the level of abuse that happens, not in terms of an absolute total. It's like, well, the EU is abusing us. This is terrible. We need to remove ourselves from it. But, we can abuse people on the national level because it's a representative government harassing them constantly. I don't quite understand that. It doesn't make any sense. What's the point of being a sovereign nation if the sovereign nation is worthless, is run by people that are worthless? Now, a nation, ultimately, its course, whether it becomes good or bad, has something to do with the capabilities of those in a position to govern its movements. Now, if you have a really libertarian system, that's almost more just a statement about the free market, oddly enough. If you have a centralized system, not a federal government, that's more on the strong side, you have something like a UK, that government has to at least be competent. Yours is not. I'm telling you right now, the British government is not competent. They're illegitimate at this point, practically. And you can't even talk about it. You British posters can barely... You have to be very careful when you talk about Tommy Robinson. I don't. I can say I think that the British government are a bunch of crazy people. I'm not going to get in trouble for it, but you might. Don't you think that's a little bit of a problem? And then there were people saying, oh, yeah, but with so much, all I see is a bunch of Americans parading their First Amendment rights. We're trying to show you what you're missing. That's the point. That's why we fought a revolution against the same government you are currently dealing with. At the time, by the way, our ancestors were British citizens. They were basically you. Don't you fucking understand that? And the government, their own government, sent troops in to disarm them and to tell them what they could and could not put on the printing press, and to quarter soldiers in their homes against their will when they were dealing with riots and shit, and taxing them up the ass without letting them actually address their grievances on a fiscal level. Yeah, and the fact that their tea sucked, and it still does suck. Your colonies have better tea than you. Oh, that one will really piss off all the British viewers here. Like, come on. What freedom do you have? Can't even own a butter knife. Yeah, wonderful. No, I think it's wonderful to be on this side of the Atlantic, and I don't want anyone from the UK to think like I'm, bad-mouthing you or something, but your country's falling apart. It's very, very visible from this side of the pond. Some of you don't see it because of shit like this. A muzzled press, muzzled population. The biggest risk is that you start being afraid to speak out against these injustices. That's a way, way bigger problem than the injustices themselves. When people begin self-censoring, that's the death knell of freedom. There are some people over here in the United States who do that. They're like, I believe something. I have people message me basically to this effect. Hey, I'd love to speak out against this tyranny, against this bullshit, against a group of zealots, against some brutal taskmaster abusing the population, some corporation or bank. But I don't dare to do that because, I might get in trouble for it. I see that even from people here within the US. I can't even imagine how bad it is in the UK. It sounds like a hellish dystopia. It sounds like it would be better to be in arguably at this point, authoritarian Eastern Europe. People go to the UK for money, but they're not going to be free. It's like you might as well jettison those people from your society. If they don't believe in liberty, they're going to be a blight on the society. Yeah, we have that problem here. To a lesser extent, thankfully. We've at least, even as the way things are going, it would take us probably a century to be as bad off as the UK. But we don't even have to go down that road. We don't have to. We're the United States. That would be my advice. We don't need to follow Europe. We should be leading. We don't need to be following other people's ideologies unless they're very libertarian. In many cases, if they were based on the US philosophy to begin with. It's crazy to think that we should be more like Western Europe. Look around you at Western Europe. It's fucking falling apart. All of it. There's no sanity left in Western Europe. Or barely. The sane political parties are considered jokes, and the insane ones are their mainline parties. Lib lab con, because otherwise the Nazis will come in and abuse you the same way we are. They'll take your free speech away. They'll take your ability to defend yourself away. They'll fuck around and let people get killed. That's what's happening. So the UK is run by Nazis. Okay, well, yeah, I guess you're on unoccupied soil at the moment. Did you accidentally lose World War II long term or something, in a philosophical sense? It's very, very interesting to see a supposedly free nation deliberately denigrate its own freedom and think that that's a good decision to make. That's never a good decision. You should be trying to expand it. The Western world needs to be about expanding liberty, not contracting it. It's an argument that we shouldn't even have to have. It's against the very spirit of individualism. It's against the very spirit of civilization as we know it. The world around you, all the wealth and luxury that you see, if you see any at all, that's the result of notions like people being able to get ahead. It's the result of notions like people not being, mass purged by their government. That's why it exists. No, there are plenty of tin horn tyrants throughout time, butchering their own people. It was called the Dark Ages. Yeah, individualism, what's that? What? The concept of the rights of the individual? No, your rights are you can farm your turnip.